What do you take care of? Introduce yourself and what do you take care of?
Yeah, hey guys, my name's Andrew Chambers. I'm a designer, mostly responsible for the Crusader, for Reaper of Souls. I've also been doing a bunch of work on the crafting systems, like the blacksmith and the updates, like some of the enchanting stuff, and also the Infernal machine. It's gonna be my big focus for Reaper.
Awesome stuff. We also
Nice.
have with us Korik. Say hi.
Hi, my name's Chloe. I'm a teacher and a channel. I'm the other guy doing feeding.
Hey guys, sorry, I can't really the audio's gone really bad for me right now. Is it okay for you guys?
No, I'm having some issues hearing Keller because
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all kind of like
You
very in
sound
and
clear
out.
to me, Andrew. But Korik, yeah, had some connection instability. It sounds like. We can come back around. What about you? What about yourself? Anyway, my name's Ziggy D. Welcome, guys. From Australia, live streamer and YouTuber. Lots of Diablo and RPGs in general, action RPGs in general. Yeah, it's the Microsoft sound, Microsoft Sam sound effects were happening there in Skype. And Ravenclaw, how are you, mate?
I'm doing pretty good.
I can hear.
Alrighty, cool. So we're gonna jump straight into it, guys. What do you reckon?
Sure, let's do it.
Awesome. We
Alright.
all get to be jelly of Andrew's awesome Crusader outfit there.
Yeah, I kind of want to spend like a minute just theory crafting your Crusader.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you sound good
Yeah,
now.
that's way better. Yeah, way better.
Oh, good.
Why don't you
I don't know
try
what
it?
that was. Sorry about that.
Reintroducing yourself, Korik, now that we can hear you properly.
Okay, my name's Koik. I'm a YouTuber and a Twitch streamer, but I'm not streaming this evening. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So, I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a massive fan of Act 2. What do you want to start off in terms of bounties? We do have the bonus in Act 2, though. Otherwise, bonus in Act 1. Want to hit up
Let's
one
do
of
Act 1.
those? Alright.
Sure.
Alright, I'm going to jump straight into like the Weeping Hollow if you guys want to follow.
Okay.
Yeah, the Crusader gear is crazy, Guzzlinger. It's awesome. It's so good. It's their showy stream gear.
Yeah, I wish
Right.
I had this actual gear on my real
Look at the
character.
shield! Look at the shield! So insane. I want to zoom in. There we go. Oh man. I just
Yeah,
got
So
my.
where are we going?
We're in the Weeping Hollow in Act 1. You should be able to banner to us.
Mm-hmm. You can right click on a portrait and teleport to a player.
Oh, you can do that now? Man, I didn't know you could right click.
Yeah, you just right click right on the
Oh
portrait.
man, awesome. Learning new
That's good. I
features
didn't know
already.
about that.
Yeah, so your Crusader set, you have Blessed Shield costing absolutely nothing.
Yep.
Your shield increases the ricochet amount, and then your rings increase the damage when you're at full resource, which is
Yep.
awesome.
Yeah, so basically I just hang out at full resource permanently, and then everything does ridiculous damage. And then every once in a while, I horse somewhere.
The
Uh,
horse skill is really nice.
Someone wants to know, is that like Blizzard only transmogs or public gear available to everyone on the Crusader?
This is public gear.
Awesome.
Everyone can play the game and find the gear and get it and look awesome.
There you go, guys. Do they have... Dark Deeg wants to know if you guys have plans for more than one set for the Crusaders. I think he's talking about set legendaries.
I don't know. We might in the future add more sets for the legendaries. I think we'd like to, sorry, for the Crusader. I think we'd like to do that across the board for all the classes, right? Is to
Yeah.
add more sort of goals for you to aim for. I think right now we're just going to stick with the one set that we have. Sets
Yeah.
are actually
Oops.
from a visual. Did you go back to town?
Yeah, I mean, just
Yes.
click there.
Just misclicked.
Now I gotta try and click on the loop without clicking on the town portal. There we go. Yeah, building those sets is a big end game goal for a lot of people. Especially, there's a lot of people that play action RPGs that are like collectors or completionists and want to build those sets.
Yeah,
So that's like a
totally.
way you can expand the content in the future, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It's also, now that we don't have the auction house, it's something that players feel like they can actually do, and something that, as a personal goal, you can achieve, without just being able to go online and purchase it very quickly. It's something that has a journey behind it, which is actually really important, right?
Yeah, yeah. and you probably remember when you found each set piece over time.
Exactly. Yep.
Which is cool. Has its own story, in addition to its actual in-game lore. What do you guys estimate the time to be to find like a full set of legendaries for a gear? You know, given the current legendary drop rates and things like that, and that how rare sets are usually.
Wow, that's a tough question to answer.
Oh, because RNG is gonna RNG after all.
RNG is gonna RNG. Like there are like when it drops a legendary, it drops a legendary. It can also drop a set. Like it can drop a set of a different class. So like even if you do get a chance to drop a set, it could be for a different class. There is still an opportunity for that to happen. Like it's not a guarantee. We made sure that like there's a higher chance that you'll see items for your class, but certainly not like a guarantee.
Yeah.
So it's something that, you know, the more you play, the better you'll get, the higher you can play and like higher difficulty levels, and then the legendary chance goes up and you'll have more of a chance to see that sort of stuff. It's very hard to like put a strict number on it.
Yeah, fair enough. You're more likely to see, like me playing a Demon Hunter now, I'm more likely to see some Demon Hunter set drops than some Crusader set drops. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say like, you know, you're like 80-90% more likely to see something for your class.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. That's good to hear. So you're the lead designer in the Crusader. So what's your favorite Crusader skill?
Dude,
Good
that's
question.
like asking me which of my sons is my favorite. it depends on the day.
Asking the tough questions today, oh man.
Here's a good question for you. Which Crusader ability was the hardest to balance? Because they all seem so good.
Hardest to balance. I think Phalanx is probably the hardest to balance, and I don't think we're done yet. I think that there's more room for it. I think right now Condemn is probably in a good place, and it feels really good to blow things up with it. But when you try and put another skill in that same sort of slot as Condemn, it just doesn't feel as compelling. Like Phalanx, like if you just look at the raw numbers, it's like that doesn't work. So
Definitely had some tweaks, but it's still a fun ability to use. Short cooldown.
yeah, I mean the Bowman is probably the one that I think works the best, and that's kind of a good example of where I think the rest of the skills, the Phalanx runes can go. Because it's such a different kind of skill in that way. It's kind of like Call of the Ancients, but on a short cooldown and with a ton of power. It's one of those things which the numbers aren't easy to just throw together for it. Like we have balanced spreadsheets and everything that we use to try and get like baseline numbers for it, and that kind of gives us a good starting point, but we really need to like try and play the skill a lot, and then also see like how people are playing it online, and you know, if they're playing it online, if they're not playing it online, then we have to start asking questions like, all right, what's going on there?
Yeah.
So, and sometimes it's a situation where, well, that other skill is just way too good and there's no reason for anyone to ever swap to it. And sometimes it's just, well, the numbers are terrible. Sometimes it's something like, so for example, like if you use Bowman, Phalanx Bowman right now on the beta, it seems like it's laggy when you cast it, because it's not actually set up correctly. It's set as a primary animation, which means the character needs to pause and actually do an animation no matter what else he's doing. So it can actually feel kind of laggy when you're summoning the guys, but that's actually something that we've changed recently, like internally. So it'll actually, like, they'll just pop up next to you. Like simple things like that, like tiny things that like you don't really notice that much when you're like just playing it, but they can make a huge difference, like to the actual feel of the skill and how it's balanced.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of balance, one of the, I would say the most controversial skills that the Crusader has is Heavenly Strength.
Sure. Yeah.
Which allows you to hold a two-hander and a shield at the same time.
Yep.
So, like, do you think it still needs some sort of balance, or are the negatives enough for...
Yeah, we discussed that internally a lot.
Oh, are we supposed to be somewhere?
Yeah, head over to Cursed Mill. I've teleported to.
I'm just following you, Ziggy.
Oh yeah, party leader.
So here's the thing. We had to allow the Crusader to, and it's not like I'm dropping knowledge bombs or anything here, I'm sure that you guys have figured all this stuff out. But we had to allow the Crusader to wield like a two-hander and a shield. Like when we decided to give him a shield as a class skill, like like item, and integrate it into a lot of his abilities and make it a really defining part of his class.
Yeah, you can't then say you can't.
We can't then
use
say
it.
you can't wield two-handed weapons,
Yeah.
right? Like that's just because then what happens when my scorn drops, or then I don't feel like I'm really able to play the game, or I'm missing out on like half of the items in the game because of that. I gotta try not to die here and look like a fool, but
I think you're good.
So at the same time, we didn't just want to make it a math problem for people to solve. Like we could have just mathed it out and said like, okay, when you choose this passive, you're taking a X% penalty to attack speed, or when you have a one-handed weapon, you're taking an X% penalty to attack speed. We just didn't want to make it like a math choice, because math choices always have a very right answer.
Yeah.
Like when you look, because it's math, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
it's very hard to go like, okay, these two numbers, like they do different things, equal exactly the same thing in a perfect situation. It's not ever going to work. And then the community is going to go, you know what? Like two-handers are always better because of math. So what we tried to do, and succeed or fail, I think we're still like trying to figure that out, is determine a way to focus around the fantasy behind what would happen if I was a real dude and I had to wield this massive scorn with a shield. I'd walk slower, right?
Yeah.
That penalty is actually pretty potent in Diablo. Like, movement speed is huge.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
it's this way on the left, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Oh. I'm really not looking at anything except for talking. Sorry, guys. This won't be your most efficient run, I promise. So we had to try and focus more on the fantasy around it. And because movement speed is a very valuable asset in Diablo, we felt that combined with the inability to just purchase every two-handed item or one-handed item in the game made it an interesting enough choice. That may be something that we need to revisit in the future. It may just not be enough. We may just go, you know what? It's just not enough. We need to add just a little bit of math in there and try and find a way to still maintain the fantasy of wielding this two-handed thing without making it too much of a math or like a penalty. There's just a lot of moving parts there.
How do
Since
you
we're
feel where it's at
doing
the moment? Sorry.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to say that I love the Nephilim Rifts.
Oh, great.
How do you feel where the two-handed passive is at the moment? Do you feel like the penalty is working as intended? Like it's enough of a penalty based on what you've seen from the beta so far?
I think so. I think the other factors, like I said, there's lots of moving parts. So there are other factors involved apart for like the numbers on a two-hander, like being good or not, like on a character sheet DPS. There's like the legendary powers, right? Like I'm wielding a one-handed item here, a weapon, because it has the thing which allows me to remove the cost of Blessed Hammer. Like that really, that's a playstyle that I want to enjoy, and I actually find that this guy does pretty good DPS, like comparatively.
Yeah.
So because you can't just go and buy like every two-hander and every one-hander, once you do find or like get a drop of a different like item, like leveling up my Crusader, like I've often found times where I'm using Heavenly Strength because I have a really good two-hander, and then I get a one-handed like legendary weapon with a power on it that I really want to try or something, or even just a regular one as I'm leveling up, and that like causes me to go, yeah, you know what, I don't need Heavenly Strength right now because I don't actually want to carry that two-hander, because that one-hander is kind of more appealing to me. I think in general that's where I would prefer we go with Diablo, is make less math choices and more fantasy choices, present those kind of things to players, like more playstyle choices, right? Like, yes, math is just such an easy way to go, like, this is right, this is wrong. But if you then start putting powers and legendary abilities and stuff on things, then all of a sudden the right and wrong answer becomes kind of different. Sometimes it can be a personal choice, and that's completely okay.
I must admit, I really like that, because I've spent my entire time on the base of playing a Crusader with a two-hander just because I like the idea of having a two-hander and a shield.
Right, yeah.
And I must admit, even though I've found good one-handers, they've not necessarily been, better than what I'm using.
Right. And sure, there might be like a DPS bonus, and a lot of players are going to be out there saying like the numbers
That's a
prove
problem.
that this and everything. where's the little dude? The numbers prove that like you're guaranteed to do more DPS or be
goblin.
more efficient or something with like a two-hander, but sometimes just playstyle can override that, you know, like, and that's okay. Like if you're like a little bit less efficient because you really want to wield this one-hander and throw blessed shields like there's no tomorrow, you know, that's kind of okay.
Hmm. Can we expect the barbarians at some point in the future be able to wield a two-hander and a one-hander? Because they did get to do that in Diablo 2.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. I can't make any promises about that. Like I can't rule anything out, but at the same time, you know,
Gotcha.
that's
Nothing
for the
planned at the
future.
moment.
Nothing planned at the moment. Yeah.
Someone, Dark Deeg wants to know, did they balance the high-end Crusader around the Akarat's set, like to get into Torment Tier 6? Do you feel it's like mandatory, or are there other ways to gear and still be viable for T6?
I think so. No, we didn't say you absolutely have to have this set in order to get into Tier 6. We don't make decisions about balance or difficulty based on that.
Yeah.
I do think that some of the Crusader's skills seem like they're underpowered right now. A part of that is balancing a character which hasn't had a lot of live exposure. Like we do have internal baselines for numbers, and you know we put those in the game, and then sometimes they don't translate quite as well as what we thought they would. I mean, if you remember when we launched like the game, we then pretty quickly after that did a balance pass on all the classes because we saw like, oh, cleave is just terrible. Like no one's ever going to use cleave, you know, because more people were playing it. And...
Legendary?
What?
Sorry.
What is it?
An amulet. I'm gonna ID it. But continue, please.
So it's, yeah, I mean, we've got the initial numbers. I think some of the numbers might need to come up. Some... Sorry, I need to look at the legendary.
Everything stops for the legendary. Prevent all arcane damage taken and heal yourself for 20... I thought they these ones were removed. Were they added back in recently, were they?
Yep.
Oh, awesome.
I think these are like the... Travis said they were on the rarest tier.
Okay.
The fire one is the rarest one because like
Molten
everything in our game does fire damage
Yeah.
for some reason. You know, 'cause
Yeah.
it's Diablo. But the others are on the rarest tier as well. I mean, we brought them back because one, they're fun. Like it's great to be able to like just completely negate something like that in the game, and two, we moved them to amulets. You know, so you can only have one at a time.
Yeah,
You have to like make
I
that
think that's
choice.
pretty
Like,
crucial.
do you want this or do you want something different? Like,
yeah, the amulet's
I
the
have a-
traditional power slot as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I mean,
so-
RNA.
So the palette, like the balance of the Crusader, like I think it's something that we'll keep on working on over time. Like once we ship the Crusader, it's not like he's done. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not like okay, we're done. We'll just like move on to something else, right?
Well, just looking at vanilla, you guys did a lot of rebalancing of multiple big patches of rebalancing for each class.
Yeah, and that's
vanilla.
important. You know, we have like, you know, so many skills and runes per like the class that, you know, we want to make sure that players feel like they're able to go to a different skill if they want to without feeling like it's just a complete loss.
Yeah.
If they want to try out that sort of play style, we want to make that feel like it's an even kind of swap. So, but sometimes, I mean, at the end of the day, when you're making a game, no matter how much like math you do, there's nothing quite like being able to play it and, you know, hear from the community about what they think is too powerful, what they think isn't powerful enough, and you know, like that's why we have a beta. I'm so happy that we have the opportunity to like do the beta this time around, because it actually like it gives us so much information and understanding about how the game's being played, and
Yeah.
and even you know, we can't respond to every single post that you guys make on the community forums or on Reddit or anything like that. But the first thing I do in the morning is look at my Facebook, and then I look at Reddit, and then I look at the BattleNet forums. Like. Like it's just the sequence of events, right? And that's like
Good
when I'm
to
lying
hear.
in bed with my coffee. So
On a related note, how do you feel where the Crusader is at the moment? It seems like most streamers and stuff that have, like, because given that the Reaper of Souls beta is a lot of streamers and things like that, a lot of people have decided that they don't like the Crusader, or they feel it's a bit underpowered at the moment, or they feel it's, yeah, some of the things are a bit lackluster. How do you feel where's the balance of the classes overall? Or what do you feel about those sorts of statements from a lot of different streamers?
like I was saying, like I think like the numbers will still change. You know, I'm actually really happy with where the Crusader is from a skill kit perspective. You know, the numbers are something that are very easy to change. Like if we were hearing from the community, I hate playing this class, I hate everything about it, I hate the shield, I hate the falling sword, I hate, then we're in a situation where like, wow, what do we do there? It's like,
Yeah, I don't
so
think
we
that's...
need to completely redesign the class, then that's a bad situation to be in. But when we're hearing things like, wow, like when I play this and then I play my barb just seems to melt stuff and this guy just doesn't seem to, that's something that we can address that's pretty easy for us to fix, right? Like
Yep.
some numbers changes
Yeah.
or, if it was like, big sweeping things like this class just isn't fun, if we were hearing that dominantly, which we're not, I'm sure you guys aren't either. Like,
Oh no.
then it's
Absolutely
just,
not.
Right.
I hear that everyone and his mother and her mother want to play the Crusader when
Right.
it launches.
There you go, right? So that's an awesome situation to be in. And for us to just go, oh, okay, so we just need to revisit the numbers and, maybe make some things more powerful and tune some things up properly or, just revisit some of that stuff. Like, okay, that's the dream position to be in, right?
Yeah.
And then we could just focus on the numbers, which relatively is easy compared to coming up with the fantasy of all the different skills and how they work together and like the synergy behind them. And that's the really hard part.
I think you're pretty right about like from a skill kit perspective. I think the Crusader has different areas of appeal. Like for myself, I don't really enjoy any of the melee aspects of the Crusader, like the melee setups and skills that you can have. But things like the shield throws and the ranged attacks and the like heavenly bombardment skills, they all feel so good. So Crusader feels really good for me for that. But so I guess people that enjoy the more melee characters will be able to enjoy the melee skills as well.
Sure, I'm glad.
Now, when you were designing the resource for the Crusader, were there any ideas that you came up with that just didn't work out? Or, like, what led you to settling on Wrath?
We actually tried something fairly early on where we wanted it to be 5 kind of points that he would grow over time, and then you'd spend 3 to cast a generator. We tested that out internally. What we realized is Diablo is too fluid for something that's fairly fixed like that. Structured. Part of the reason for going with something like that is I wanted him to feel very deliberate. I mean, he's this big dude with a big shield and a big weapon. He shouldn't feel like a monk where he's like, blah, 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 like he should feel like slowly walking into the battle and not giving a damn that there's 1,000 monsters coming towards him. So part of that was like, okay, click 5 times, spend 3, like that sort of like feeling was something that was going to try and get him this feeling of deliberateness. But something as structured as that doesn't work quite as well. Wow, 152, that's the most I've ever done. Something structured like that didn't really work out with the fluid nature of like Diablo. So we ended up with Wrath. So partly because when we were working, we're looking for the queen, right?
Yeah, it's pointing me off in the right direction to the right, but can't see how to get there
we
from
went
here.
the completely wrong way.
Yeah, looks like it. I'm gonna have to head down this way.
Don't follow the designer. That's like the worst thing.
You're not a level designer, jeez.
Where was I?
Dark Dig has
Oh,
sorry,
I was
continue.
just gonna finish up with the Wrath.
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
What we wanted to like have is something that some of the other classes we felt were lacking is that time between fights where you can be running between them and you're not able to get enough resource to enter the fight and be able to cast. Sometimes you can be in a situation where you encounter a big group of monsters, you have 0 resource, and then you can't unleash straight away. So we wanted that feeling of running between fights, he regens, and then he hits like really hard when he enters. So that was kind of the how we ended up with Wrath.
Alrighty. Dark Dig wants to know about the change to Thorns Crusaders and the move away from Thorns. What are your thoughts on that, or how do you feel about the Thorns changes? I quite like the idea of Thorns and being a big role for the Crusader when it first came out, myself.
Yeah, some of that was, internally we have a design philosophy called concentrated coolness. I don't know if you guys have heard of this before, but it can be a little bit of an obscure kind of concept to grasp. But if you have one skill that does 70 things, you're better off just having, like, if you have 70 skills that do all these different things in crazy different ways, like you can't just then like take all those things and put all 70 ideas into one skill, right? Then you end up with something that's kind of diluted, and that's where a lot of the Thorns stuff kind of was falling for us. Like we had it on some different runes and everything, and like it just kind of like was falling into a place where it was overcomplicating some of the skills. So we did a simplification pass, and that was one of the things that unfortunately got lost along the way, like as part of that simplification pass.
So the Thorns wasn't cool enough in TLDR. Thorns wasn't cool enough. Fair enough.
I think there's still ways to build a Thorns Crusader using
Yeah.
some of the legendaries that are out there. And his innate, having the shield and everything on there, like the changes that we made to Thorns to make it work against ranged attacks and everything, like I think those things all add up. It's just not part of his core skill kit anymore.
Gotcha. Mind if we shift topics?
Sure.
All right. So unfortunately, we don't have the materials, but there's a new Uber event in Reaper of Souls called Uber Diablo.
Yeah.
Have all of you experienced it, or at least seen it?
Yeah,
I haven't even seen it.
I haven't played it yet myself though. Need to get them mats.
Yeah. So basically, you start off fighting Uber Diablo in the Shadow Realm, and then suddenly, at 75% health, another random boss spawns. And then at 50% health, another random boss spawns.
Yeah, it's pretty full on.
25% health, you get another
Wow.
2 Diablos. And so, like, how'd you design this new encounter?
Well, we wanted to bring the Infernal Machine to level 70 experience. We feel that that's part of a big part of the end game for people, like to be able to experience and have that drive towards building the Hellfire Ring. And we had Act 4, and adding Diablo seemed like a bit of a no-brainer for us. As for the design around the fight, we really actually liked the way that the other Ubers worked, and bringing them into the fight was kind of an interesting opportunity for us, instead of just having the standard he summons ads. It's like, oh, what if we did an Uber version where he summoned the Uber ads? It's like, oh wow, that's great.
It makes so much sense because it's Diablo, and he's commanding these guys throughout the rest of the game, and then now he's just commanding them for this particular fight as well.
Yeah, and it also kind of builds on previous knowledge. Like if you've done the other fights, you're actually kind of better off, and you can learn from fighting those other monsters, like how to actually beat them in this experience. It was actually one of the fights that I think is actually the greatest of the original Ubers is Siegebreaker and Zoltan. The way those two work together is actually really interesting. Like you have Siegebreaker, and he's this big lump of meat that you just can't really ignore. And then there's Zoltan, who's this really annoying dude who's jumping around off in the background.
He is super annoying.
He's super annoying, right?
Yeah.
But it actually it forces the question of which do you focus on first? Right? And it doesn't seem like there's a really obvious answer. So we tried to accomplish the same sort of thing with the Uber Diablo, right? Like when he does summon those ads, there shouldn't be a really clear answer of, do I just burn down? Oh yeah, that's my thing in there.
There we go. Oh no, I aggro the goblin. I'm going for the goblin. You guys can deal with the bad guys.
Come help with the goblin.
Goblin's more important.
Have some of those situations where you're fighting and something summons or something spawns, and you're not really sure what the right answer is. Is the right answer to keep on focusing fire on Diablo, which probably it isn't. But sometimes you can, because sometimes Diablo might actually be easier, and you can use some ancillary AOE damage to burn down the other bosses.
One of the other things that I think is really cool is that I don't know at what point it starts, but the exploding goblins start spawning and jumping out of everywhere.
Oh yeah, the ads, the fallen lunatics just start easy. That's actually boss dependent, so that's ad dependent. It doesn't happen every.
Oh really?
Time. Yeah.
Interesting.
It depends on which ad you get. I actually really like the can't remember the dude's name. You guys played WoW?
Yes.
Do you remember Blackwing Lair had the dog that each week was a different spell that you needed to combat using the sand? What was his name?
Is that not Chromagus?
Chromagus, yeah. Each time you fought him, he had time or something like that. You had to use different sand in order to actually Anyway, I'm showing my age, but that was something that I really liked. That feeling of the fight isn't exactly the same every single time. We expect players to do the Ubers quite a bit. So keeping that experience fresh each time can be really interesting and make it kind of more fun to do.
That achievement was pretty cool. Block it like it's hot.
The names for achievements are pretty long.
The writers did a pass on those, and for the first ones, And I'm like, really? We can name things that? And it's awesome, but really, we can do that?
Okay.
How do you guys foresee expanding on adventure mode in the future? It's certainly an interesting feature, and I've been having loads of fun. In fact, I prefer to just do adventure mode all the time now.
Sure.
Have you got any plans for expanding on it in the future, like adding more bounties or perhaps other random events, like the Uber events you've just been talking about?
So all of this was, possibly in the future, but we have talked about adding more to it. I think one of the things that adventure mode does is unlocks the game in this really interesting way and allows players to see the game from a fresh perspective. Instead of being driven through the game using the quests, you get to kind of jump everywhere and do these bounties, which are really cool and interesting. As with anything, that content might get a little stale over time. So some of the things we're thinking about is how do we like you said, introduce new bounties over time? Is there a way that we can, add events or something that keep it fresh, without that feeling of, just adding more work for players or more complication,
Yeah.
And there are some targets in there for that. There are more uniques in the game that we can make bounty targets, which are fairly straightforward for us to do. We might do something along those kind of lines. Obviously, I can't speak of timeline or anything like that, but
No.
keeping the game fresh and ensuring that the things that we're adding to the game is the best thing for the community is our biggest focus. I mean, I think you can sort of see that with Reaper Souls, right? I'm ridiculously proud of vanilla Diablo. I think we actually really knocked it out of the park from an ARPG perspective. But as the community pointed out, there was a lot of things that we could improve upon. So we did. The itemization improved, all the class balance, that sort of stuff. We improved on that base. I mean, if vanilla Diablo wasn't as good of a game as it is right now, there's no way that Reaper Souls could have been better just by adding a bit of itemization to it. So at the end of the day, we are very interested in keeping the game updated and making sure that the community is getting the best experience that they can out of the game.
So yeah, these arcane lasers heal me now. I'm pretty hyped about that.
Yeah.
One of the scariest things in the
why you
game,
were
and I'm
being
like,
so
oh yeah, just dancing and this feels good. It tickles. It's like a nice massage.
I have the fire one, and I seek out Molten whenever I can, or Desecrator. I'm just like, yep, standing in that. Yep, standing in that.
Just a dot heal for me, thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
So something else you played a huge part in with the development is crafting. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And what does everyone think about the crafting? I've definitely been leveling up the blacksmith. I've done some dual crafting. I haven't played around too much with the enchanting.
I'm pretty keen on the legendary crafting, the new additions to that. How that you actually have to hunt specific ingredients to craft them as well, and even just the fact that you have to have the base white item now to craft them. Feels a lot better. I think completionists and collectors will have a much better time with Reaper of Souls crafting system so far. That's
I'm really happy you brought that up.
on it.
That was one of the goal of adding that legendary crafting material to the legendary items. When I did the legendary items for vanilla, they were fine, but it didn't feel like you were crafting a legendary item, it just felt like you were salvaging a whole bunch of stuff that you saw all the time anyway, and then pressing a button and getting a legendary out of it. It didn't feel like a journey or an experience, right? It didn't feel like getting the key to unlock Onyxia, right? It should feel something like that, like an epic journey. And there should be. I actually farmed a whole bunch of the stuff for the Ashira's vestments yesterday with my friend. We logged on together and we were farming the dude. That's not his real name, but I can't pronounce it. And it was just great. We hung out for a long time and played for a long time, and we had this shared experience because we were both working towards something, and it was really fun. So making crafting those legendaries a journey is really important, feeling like you've actually earned it, that you actually had to look in this really interesting way. And I think there's probably more that we can do to make it a little bit more obvious, when you're playing the game. Oh god, I just wanted things.
So, do you think that the rewards could still be improved over the journey that you have to go through to get everything? Or do you feel like the legendary that you get crafted is worth?
Yeah, how do they stack up compared to
hour?
drop legendaries? Is a question
Yeah.
someone wanted to know.
Yeah, they're close. They do use the same affix ranges as the other drop legendaries. I don't think enough of them have like interesting powers. Like some of them you just look at as like orange rares.
Just a better rare. Yep.
But you do have, like, when you do roll that legendary item, you do have the ability to roll on the higher affix ranges that all the legendaries roll on.
Yep.
So if you have like a pair of legendary braces and you upgrade to like a pair of, if you're currently wearing a pair of rare braces, then it could be in your interest to actually upgrade to a legendary one, because the affix ranges are going to be higher, like the rolls are going to be higher. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're all fulfilling as much of the reward as what I would like. I would like every single one of them to have powers, but sometimes that's just not realistic, and we have to go, you know what, upgrading from a rare to any legendary is still an upgrade, even if it might not be like the be-all, end-all, game-changing legendary that everyone wants.
So apart from being a collectible, some of them might be stepping stones into some of the higher grade drop legendaries.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you do craft that legendary bracer and it lets you go up to Torment 2, then it, that's pretty awesome. Or if it added like some DPS, like it's not necessarily about everything having like a power. It's sometimes just about getting like a little bit more sheet DPS or toughness or healing.
We missed one somewhere.
Yeah, I think he's hiding down the
Speaking
bottom
of
here.
legendaries, I've just found one. Two-handed sword, the first one I found.
Oh, nice.
Legendary hype. Give us a
Much
look. Give us a look.
I linked it in chat just now.
Oh, I missed it. There it is, Blackguard. Oh, the deeps.
It's actually an upgrade as well.
Nice.
Nice.
Alright, let's go unwrap our heraldry cash presents. Here we go, cash versus cash. Please explain.
Tomato, tomato.
Every time I say cash, I get chewed out by my viewers. Like, I swear we say cash here. Like,
Pretty sure we said
Now
cash.
here's a question about the crafting. So a lot of the crafting requires these reusable parts, which you can either get from like heraldric caches or salvaging white items. Do you still like? I feel like when you're running through and you're having this epic adventure, just stopping and picking up white items to just so you can craft later on isn't exactly adventure fulfilling. Like you're picking up rares, you're picking up legendaries. Oh yeah, I need to pick up some white items.
Right. Part of it is about allowing players to have multiple goals when they play the game. So, for example, you're talking about picking up rares and legendaries. What you're looking for there from an emotional, like a mental perspective, is just sheet DPS numbers. You're just going like, what's my right now, what's my right now, what's my right now, always just comparing rares and legendaries. That can get really exhausting sometimes. So when we add that sort of requirement, like every once in a while you need to pick up a white item, which is pretty easy, really. That allows you to mentally take a different track. And sometimes you can go, I crafted the Ashira's set, right? So I needed to look for white boots. That was actually really interesting for me, because ordinarily all I'm doing is looking for rares and legendaries. But all of a sudden my goal, which the game drives me there, but I set myself, drove me to start looking for white boots. Like that's a really, it was kind of like a mental refresher. All of a sudden oh, okay, I'm not just looking at the next thing, the next rare or legendary, I'm actually looking for something in between. We understand that people don't love picking up every single white item that they see, which is why we made them salvage into quite a number of white items, so that you didn't have to do it absolutely every single time that you saw a white item. You can just go, oh, I don't need that anymore, I can stop picking them up. Once I've got 300 white items or something like that, I feel like I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
I quite like that you have to keep a little mental checklist of some white items and things you're looking for now. So now I'm like, all right, I need that particular crossbow, or I just need to pick up every white at the moment because I want to craft some stuff.
Right.
Something related though is, I feel like the biggest bottleneck in the crafting system at the moment, and you're probably the best person if anyone to ask about this, is the blue resource, so blue items, because I feel like so many more rares drop than blues now, that
Sure.
actually getting blues is a bit challenging, and they're the most required resource, it seems. So how do you feel about the balance of
I
that?
don't completely disagree. I think we can still work on that. Like we do get data from like internally. Like we know like how many blues drop, how many rares drop, that sort of stuff. Like in the game from the community, and the crafting is kind of a crafting and drop rates are kind of a chicken and the egg scenario. It's really hard to like balance crafting numbers until you've really figured out what your drop rates are going to be.
Yeah.
So now that we're pretty happy with where the drop rates are, we can start taking more of a focus on like getting the crafting stuff a bit more like figured out or like solidified. I do think that the blues are too much of attention because they're kind of on everything. Like one of the things I did recently was I did a pass on all the crafting so that some items are sinks for things. I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but so enchanting certain items or like crafting certain items costs far more yellow than blue, for example.
Yeah.
The problem there is that even though it costs far more yellow than blue, it still costs some blue. So you don't actually have a way to self-solve or like sink that yellow. Like if you have a glut of yellow, you're still always relying on some form of blue. So I think what we'll probably do is like in the future remove some of that blue material entirely from some of those recipes. So that if you're, if you do have a stockpile of yellow, you still feel like, oh, okay, I can just, spend all this yellow right now and get rid of it, and then you can kind of self-solve your the disparity between the stockpile of crafting materials that you might have. Overall, though, yeah, I think the blue crafting material could probably come down. It's a weird scenario, right? Because we have crafting material that matches rarity, but our rarity doesn't actually, like the colors don't actually match how rare something is. So for example, like you'd think because it's blue, you see far more blue, but that doesn't actually work out. Like you can't actually do that in the game because then it just feels terrible because you're wearing all rare items or legendaries. Like you shouldn't be seeing blues more often than you're seeing rares because then you're just like, wow, the world is covered in items that I'll never use. So we can't do that. So we'll probably just change it a bit so that the blue crafting was a bit cheaper.
Yeah, I think the idea of having some that only cost yellows will probably be a big fix for it, because then I can just focus on those if I have at least then I feel like it's balanced, rather than that I'm lacking blues, was what it feels like at the moment. It's like my inventory's full of rares at the moment, I'm like, see blue on the ground, I'm like, well, better drop a rare for that. It's like, seems a bit backwards, but
I know, and emotionally, like, we spoke about it a bit internally. I'm like, well, people can just stop picking up rares. I'm like, that's never going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, everyone is always going to pick up every single rare that they see. Like, it's just never going to happen that you stop picking up rares. Like, it's very hard. So, we'll just accept it and balance around it. The self-solving, though, is, like, really important. Especially in a world where those things are account-bound and players can't trade that. So you can't, like, help each other to like self-solve that sort of thing. So the account bound thing is like really important though. So we want to allow players to like self-solve in that way. Self-solve in that way.
Yeah, that seems to be the idea, the focus. That's a good term for it actually, the self-solving. That's what self-found is all about, and that's what the game seems to be oriented towards now.
So, are you happy with the difficulties and the difficulty drop rates? Like, right now we're running on Torment 1, and going up Torment levels, it increases your legendary drop chance, right?
It also increases like XP and gold, I believe, right?
Are you seeing that a lot of people are running these higher levels, or are people just sticking mainly to Torment 1?
I haven't actually looked at the data recently, so I couldn't say for certain whether that's enough of an incentive or not. I do know that nothing would be far too little, but we need to be wary of making it too much of a lure. If you remember in vanilla, we had the higher level items dropping in higher difficulties, right? And that was terrible because there was the argument of like, well, in order to get to that higher difficulty, like I need to get past this wall of like bees, and I can't because it's too hard, but then all the best items are there. So we kind of need to be careful about what things we gate or how much incentive we want to drive people towards, because otherwise they're going to start taking on far too much challenge for themselves over efficiency, Are they going to just have to like feel like they have to start putting the game in a situation where they're like, oh god, I just have to be in Torment 6 no matter what, right? Like, we don't want that.
But at the same time, you don't want people running like normal or Torment 1 simply because you're killing stuff faster, so you have a faster drop rate of legendaries.
Right. So that's what I was saying. Like, we can't have nothing, right? Like, if we didn't have the increased chance of legendary drop rate, like, no one would ever do anything except for Torment 1, right? I got a legendary.
Oh, GG.
Congrats.
I'm gonna ignore everything and pick it up. So again, it's just kind of a bit of a balancing act. You know, fortunately, that number is something that is fairly easy for us to change. You know, so if you feel that like if people aren't progressing through the difficulties in a way that seems to match their gear level or their ability level, then we can totally revisit that.
Personally, I've found like the curve, the incline for climbing up into the higher difficulty modes versus my like Paragon levels. I found that quite smooth. Yeah, steady progress, I'd say.
It's good. I mean, we didn't want to make it too hard to get into Torment, because Torment is where the new legendaries start dropping. Like, we wanted to allow players to feel like they could progress fairly easily. We kind of expect that quite a few players will be in Torment, like, not too long after the game comes out. But then we needed the legs, so like Torment 6 kind of ramps up to something fairly substantial. So.
The thing is, everyone's going to want to try out the hardest difficulty just so that they can say, I'm doing it on Torment 6.
Sure.
Everyone's always striving to do it on the hardest.
Yeah, but they find out pretty quick they might not be able to.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So, and that's fine, because you still have the ability to progress and earn that gear at the lower levels, right?
Just to go back to crafting for a sec, a few of my guys asked...
Sure.
Whoa, there we go.
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, a bit rippy. A few of my guys asked, have you guys considered like having an internal trading system where you can, like in terms of the crafting mats, trade like rares to blues, like yellow mats to blue mats at a certain rate or something like that? Obviously with a pretty big penalty, but is that something you've considered?
We've considered it. We don't love it because then it means that I don't care about what I'm picking up.
Yeah,
like, part of the reason we added it is to, like I was saying, push people to think about different things as they're playing the game. If you can just pick up every single rare in the game and know that eventually you'll be able to turn that into any other crafting material, then it sort of defeats that gameplay initiative, right? It's kind of like we spoke about doing a similar thing with gems, right? Like allowing gems to be round robin converted or something, like red to green to something, but it just would have made it feel a bit less interesting when you see those items. That being said, I think that one of the things I do want to do is allow players to so right now when you're enchanting rings, legendary rings, it costs a gem of a certain color, and that color is...
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, that color is fixed on the item, which can feel really rough. Like if you're a barbarian, like a Crusader, and you have a ring that requires a ruby to enchant, like it just feels terrible. You're like, that's just cruel.
Right.
So one thing that I really want to do is allow players to, when they're enchanting that, have some way to pick what color gem they're going to spend. So as a Crusader, you may just go, you know what, I want to always just spend the yellow, the topaz, instead of my rubies, but still get the benefit of the enchant. Especially where players, sometimes you're just at the RNG, where you don't, sometimes you'll just see only one ruby for ages, right? You'll never actually like see something that you, the color that you need. So.
I think we need to double back on ourselves.
I think so. Bit of a dead end.
Yeah.
Oh, is it a dead end?
Yeah, I don't think anything comes out of there.
Thank you so much for the war steed, by the way. It's so handy, like, just when you get into a corner and you realise, oh, I've got to go all the way back to the other end of the map. It's amazing.
With the move speed reductions from the two-hander, sorry, do you feel like that passive's a bit that skill's a bit mandatory? I know it's a pretty hard fixture on most people's toolbar, the Steed.
I think it's mandatory regardless. Whether you're taking
Too
it or not.
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, our numbers internally show that almost everyone's taking it. Like, it's, I mean, which is fine. Like, one of the things that I decided early on with the design of the Crusader is that he wasn't going to have many movement abilities. He actually has more than what I intended him to have. Like, Falling Sword is inherently a movement ability. I mean, the huge damage as well, but it has it. Shield Bash has the built-in movement capacity, which you can use. And Steed Charge is really Steed Charge is really potent movement ability. So because he only has one obvious movement ability, yeah, most people are going to take it. Like I was saying, like movement is critical in Diablo, especially when you reach those like down points, those dead ends, which do happen and they're going to happen. You need a way to like quickly double back or like get to the next fight or
if you get boxed in by monsters.
By Waller or something, yeah, right? Like you need a way to like quickly escape. So
Gummy.
Oh, so a question about the worst, the Steed. In the one of the first few patches, you had the cooldown timer of the Steed depend on how much you used it, and it seems like it's gone now.
Yeah, we had to take that
intended?
out. It was snuck in. We were kind of like trying it out internally. We never actually intended it to go out in that way.
Because I thought it was pretty cool. Like, it was really handy.
It was, but it was, you could, the uptime on it was too much, basically. Like, you could uptime it, drop it, uptime it, drop it, uptime it. Like, you could, like, use it, cast something, use it, cast something. So then you could, like, have it up, like, very often. So we just, it wasn't something that we felt was the kind of gameplay that we really wanted, like, the dude to, like, be on the horse continually, like, all the time or something.
Dexter wants to know if you guys are aware of or have any plans for the ability to go into a new game with a new tune. Let me read out his wording just to explain it properly. Make a game Torment 6 and get to level 60 in under 15 minutes. This is obviously on the PTR. He said he made a new tune in PTR. My buddy came in 60 Witch Doctor. Oh man, I'm dying. And I was I was 42 before I even went into Tristram. Do you know what he's referring to? I think it must be something to do with the bounties.
I haven't, but we can totally look into it. It sounds like he's getting a huge reward from the quests for doing the story mode.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it personally, but we'll thank you for pointing it out, and we'll take a look. That's exactly what the beta is for, and the PTR is for.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Dexter. Oh man, I'm still ripping to the smog.
That's too damage.
Do you happen to know what the drop rates are for the new Infernal keys on like the different Torment levels? Like, is it 100% at Torment 6?
No, it's 50% at Torment 6.
Okay.
It starts at 25% in Torment 1, and then scales up by, I think it's about 20%, until it hits 50% in Torment 6.
So that's an incentive to go a little higher.
It is. I mean, the original Infernal Machine event had it at 100% at MP10. And again, that's setting like a incredibly high reward behind a incredibly higher difficulty level. Like, it forced people into a game experience that they couldn't actually accomplish in order to get that level of reward. It's just not really something that we felt was appealing. So we decided to change that so it only is 50% now at the highest difficulty level.
I've got another Crusader question.
Shoot.
Dark D Gas, do they plan on adding different damage types for Crusaders cooldown attacks like Bombardment, Condemn, Heaven's Fury, like they did with Avalanche and Earthquake for the Barbarian, and I also throw in for the Demon Hunter recently got a Elemental tuning past, like at least one cooldown skill, the same, like different elements and things like that. Do you guys have any plans to make that more elemental?
I want him to have more lightning, yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't have enough lightning. I always imagined him more like lightning-y sort of stuff, so he doesn't have enough. I can't speak to like when that's going to happen, but it definitely is on my list of things to do. Like, I think Heaven's Fury should have a bit of lightning in there. Like, I think Akarat's Champion should have lightning. Like, his core themes are definitely like, holy, lightning, and fire. He doesn't have like cold or anything like that. He does have some, but not enough. Cold feels too kind of necro-y. So we'll probably focus more on like those kind of elemental damage types.
Yeah. As a little side note, I really like the tuning passes that have gone into making each class more elemental, particularly the wizard, but with the demon hunter changes recently, with the new ability to use the mystic to re-roll different fire damage bonuses and stuff on your gear. It feels really good to be able to make a gear set for each spec. Be like, all right, this is my fire spec, and that's what I'm wearing now.
Yep, makes it a bit more
Barbarian
interesting.
also feels good without having only physical attacks.
Yeah, especially, you know what? Like, the biggest thing we noticed is we put in the background colors on the skills, and then we're looking at Barbarian and we're like, that's really boring. There wasn't enough color. It was kind of the biggest kind of hint for us. I have 2 more minutes, guys, and then I have to
Alright.
head up. So if you have any last questions.
Any last questions, guys, in the chat?
I've got a question. So when you were designing crafting, did you keep hardcore in mind? Because it seems like for hardcore that would be a good source of gear, because you always want to be over leveled for hardcore, and you want to have the best gear for the current difficulty. So did you really consider and try to gear around hardcore?
Not. I can't say we went out of our way to design for hardcore. I think it's a benefit, but realistically, we wanted that to be accomplished for both hardcore and non-hardcore players, right? Like, as a system, it's something that you should better use to supplement gear and get good rolls. I think, when we first put the system out, it wasn't really accomplishing that. It was probably way too random. But with the addition of the smart drop stuff, the smart rolling, systems that we have in there now, it feels really good to be able to level up your character and use the blacksmith in that way. The only downside to the crafting, it feels like it doesn't really hold up in the end game quite as well. The mystic certainly does, but the blacksmith feels like he kind of gets lost by the wayside a little bit. So that's something that I'm probably going to try and focus on a bit in the future. So.
Oh, I also wanted to say that the new animation for the hellfiring is really awesome.
The tech artist that did that is called Julian Love. He actually used artwork from Diablo II, I believe.
Yeah, it's reminiscent of the River of Flame.
Yep, totally.
Nice.
He pulled it from there.
Awesome.
Very
Little tidbit for you guys. On that note, I'm going to have to go.
Alrighty, thank you so much for your time, Andrew Chambers. It was awesome, man.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Andrew.
guys. It's been a pleasure.